If I were to be asked what my favorite video game genre is, I wouldn't have an answer. I have played a lot of games. Video games in general have just been an extremely important part of my life, and that has led me to play tons of different games of tons of different genres, from horror, fighting, racing, simulation. I've played a lot. But I would say a big contender for the number one spot is RPGs, also known as role playing games. I like a lot of RPGs, from just normal RPGs, I guess, from games like Skyrim, Baldur's Gate 3, to JRPGs like Final Fantasy, Persona, Yakuza. I like a lot of RPGs, but one RPG I am really fond of is Fire Emblem Awakening. So before the video continues, I am going to go ahead and admit to you, dear viewers, this is not going to be a super deep analytical dive into what I think is the peak 3DS gaming experience, Fire Emblem Awakening. But this is just going to be my thoughts and a little bit of recap on the game, because I think for all these type of videos I do, I'm going to leave stuff out so you guys can go play the game and experience for yourself, because I think it'd be really fire if I put someone on to the peak that is Fire Emblem Awakening. I guess you could say you would be awakening to peak.
Shut your fucking mouth!
Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Let's turn back the calendar. The year is 2013. Fire Emblem just came out. Fire Emblem Awakening comes out. I think it came out like February 13th. Either the 13th or the 12th. But I didn't get to play it until later that year because I asked for it for Christmas. An older cousin, he had the game, and being the impressionable child I was, I really wanted it, and I got it for Christmas. And even as a young jet, I realized how good the game was. I think this was the first 3DS game I completed solely by myself, surprisingly. It was a big accomplishment for me because I was like 9, and I beat like this really text-heavy game all by myself. But enough of that. Let's dive in to Fire Emblem Awakening. I'm just gonna talk about things as I go. We're gonna talk a little bit about the stories, the characters, the gameplay, stuff like that. So the story starts with a prologue. Basically, it's called a premonition. And what this is, it is the two main characters, Chrom and the playable character Robin, who I will be referring to as Robin for the video. They are fighting this strange-looking man called Vladior, and they kill him, and it's like ominous. He like laughs as they kill him, and the story starts with what I'm going to call Act 1. I've divided the game's story into 3 different acts, but the first arc or act, this is the first half of the story. I call it is the Ylesian Plaguean War. So, chapter 1 starts, we get a cutscene. This game has cutscenes, 3D cutscenes. And here we meet Chrom, we meet Chrom's sister Lisa, we meet Frederick, and Robin. And it's here we get our first real fight, because they enter like a town that is under attack by Plagueans. So, a little bit of the gameplay. This is a turn-based strategy game where you move units like a cross, and with the majority of chapters, you either have to take down the boss of the level or you have to defeat every enemy. And as we continue, every unit has a class. There's the basic classes, like there's mage, healer, knight, but then there's like more advanced classes, like there's the dark mage, there's the wyvern rider, dragon rider, pegasus rider. I'll give more examples as more of those characters get introduced. But at the start of the game, we have Crom, who's a knight. Robin, it's up to you, but when I play, I usually make Robin a mage. We have Lisa, who is the support, she's the healer. And we have Frederick, who is a horse rider. But I think he's like a fighter, he's a knight, I think. So the first chapter is completed, and basically Crom and crew are heading back to like the main city of the country, Yalisa. I think the country is Yalisa. It's Yalise. I was right. And as like more cutscenes play, we basically learn a little bit more about these guys. So Crom is leading these guys. He leads a military group called the Shepherds. And the Shepherds we're going to get into later. But on the way back to the city, the capital, like the main city of Yalise, the party is attacked by like these creatures called the Risen through this strange portal. And the Risen it's a very common enemy in the game, but basically they are zombies. And in this fight, we meet the first two units that we get, Sully and Vivrion. Sully is another horse rider, and Vivrion is an archer. Well, I'm gonna wait a little bit to dive into the characters. I'll wait. So at this point, they come in, they help us. Basically, for this first act of the story, you basically get characters like every chapter. I should have mentioned this, but the Elysian Plague and War is chapters 1 through 10, I think. So we're basically going to get new characters every stage. So we meet Solian and Vivrion, and a cutscene plays, and it shows that two Risens are about to kill Crom and Lisa, and they're saved by a mysterious man calling himself Marth, who is a big deal in the Fire Emblem games. I've never played Marth's the game like he's actually from, but he's a big deal in the verse. And after that, he kind of just disappears and leaves. And the crew, they get back to the main city. They get to the capital, and they talk with Crom's older sister, who is like the queen of the country. Her name is Emerlyn. And it's here we meet a lot of the Shepherds. So we're going to dive into some of the characters. So we talked a bit about Robin. Robin is the playable character. I really like this game, but one of my biggest complaints about this game is you can't really control Robin like in dialogue. This game has no dialogue options for you to pick ever really. So Robin is kind of just he's just like a tactician. He's somewhat like leader of the group. In like the whole group, he's the tactician. Like story-wise, that's what he plays as. That's his role. Vike, I think it's pronounced Vike. He is like he's not a serious character at all. He's more of a gag character. He forgets his acts, like but he's like strong. He's like the super strong, like all talk, all bark, no bite, but like he's still like a decent unit. Speaking of Vike being like comedic, the first chapter you get him, he's brought in. Vike is introduced to introduce a gameplay mechanic where you have to give characters items because he's introduced without his axe. And I guess that's a good segue to our next character, Muriel. She's like a serious like wizard that wants to get stronger and learn all of these different magics. She's also introduced with Vike because she has to run into battle to give him his axe. It's very, very goofy. Uh, yeah, I think that is it for the. I think that's it for a majority of the shepherds. We have some. We have Sumia, who is our first character who rides like a creature. She's a Pegasus rider. Uh, and I mean, I won't get into it, but basically, like some like Pegasus riders and like Dragon riders and Wyvern riders, they can basically like bypass the terrain because difficult terrain is like a big thing in this game. Uh, we have Kellum. Kellum is this big knight in like big armor. He's more on the goofy side of characters because his whole gag, he has like a running gag where he's often like forgotten, like a ghost. Like people never see him. We have Long Q, who is also he's a pretty good character. I like him. He's like I think he's one of the more serious characters in the whole game. Like whenever you level up like a character, they always say something, and I think his every time he says something, it's either just 3 dots or it's just one word. He also starts with a really good weapon called the Killing Edge, so that's nice. Uh, so that's it for I think that's all of the shepherds so far. So in the story, let's cut back to the story. Emerlin tells Crom and the shepherds to go, like, seek aid from a country north of Elise called Regna Ferrix. And once they get there, they fight through some risen and whatnot. Uh, they have to participate in this game because Regina Ferrix is like a big like fighting country, I think. So they win and they get the attention of the two cons, Flavia and Basilaio, and they get the help. And around this time, the whole crew is attacked by more Risens, and they get help from Marth again. And Crom realizes that him and Marth have the same sword. Uh, so yeah, go back to the capital, and the king of Plegia, Gangrel, has announced war because a noblewoman from Ulysses named Maribel has crossed the border. And Maribel has tight connections with the crew because she knows Frederick and like Crom and all them. So Crom has to go and step in and save her. And here we meet Maribel. We meet the characters Maribel and Rickon for the first time. Maribel is she's like this like snotty rich girl. Like basically she's like pampered, like yeah, like I think you guys are like getting what I'm saying. And Rickon, he's like a young mage who like I will be honest, I don't really know much. Rickon is like one of the few characters in the whole series, in the whole game that I've never really interacted with. So we cut to this part where Crom and Co are fighting in this castle against Vladior. Everyone like this is like a big fight. I think this is like the first big fight of the game. And Martha's here, and the whole goal is to take down all the enemies and protect Emerlin because she's a character on the board now. And so we fight through the forces, and we meet a new party member who is personally one of my favorites. Her name is Penny. She is a Tegel, which is basically like putting in D&D terms, it is a druid. She can transform into like a giant like battle rabbit. She's one of my favorite characters in the game. I like her. She's sweet. And this is the first chapter to do something interesting. In this fight, you can actually recruit one of the enemies to be on your side. His name is Gaius. He's a thief. And thieves in this game, they can just lockpick doors for free. And yeah, I think it's neat to have like an enemy that you can recruit. It happens 2 more times in the story. It's just Gaius is the first. Gaius is like this. He's quiet to himself, but he has a big sweet tooth. And I'll go ahead and talk about this before I forget. Uh, in this game, there are side missions called paralogs, where you can actually get some interesting characters, like Donald, who is a farm boy, where if you level him up at least once, he'll join your party. It's just the only problem is that he's pretty weak. And we also have Anna, who is the merchant in Fire Emblem Awakening. And she has multiple sisters. It's like a Nurse Joy situation from Pokemon, where she has multiple sisters, they all look the same, and in game they're shopkeepers, like all of them. So we'll come back to parallel characters. The story continues. The Elysians and the Shepherds are fighting the Plagans in the war. We meet some new party members along the way. We meet Cordelia, who is a Pegasus Knight as well. And here we meet 2 characters I really like. We have Naui, who is this dragon girl. They're called Monokites. And kind of like Pane, she can transform into a giant dragon. And with her is this mercenary named Gregor. And Gregor is the GOAT. Other than just having like a pretty low IQ, Gregor is the GOAT. We meet Libra, who is a war monk. This is the point in the game. At this point in the game, this is a unique class because war monks can heal and do damage, and overall, he's just a pretty good unit. For our next unit, we have Tharja, who is a dark mage. Like Gaius, my apologies for all the Tharja fans, don't kill me. She is also an enemy that you can convert to, to join you. And I think that's all the units for the first act. So the story continues. TLDR, the Plagans have kidnapped Emerlin, and the Shepherds have fought their way into the country, like their country. And the country is like a desert, like the country of Plagia is a desert. And Emerlin is like thinking to herself, she's like, dang, this isn't gonna stop, because they're basically holding her hostage, and she gives a piece of the Fire Emblem to Chrome, and she dies. She does the thing, she takes a step, and it's just unfortunate. So for the next bit of the story, we have what I consider the second act of the game, the war against Vom. So after Emerlin dies and the Elysian Plagan War ends, I don't think we're given a time window. All we do know is that some time has passed, and Crom, I think, is like the leader of Ylise now. And in my playthrough, he married Sully, but I know it can vary because Crom has to marry a woman for the story to continue. So I'm gonna refer to Crom's wife as Sully for the rest of the video because that's what happened to me. So Crom and Sully get married, and they have a daughter, a little baby. They name her Lucina, and in her left eye she has the Fire Emblem symbol. And around this time, my playable character, if anybody was wondering, married Penny, the goat. Love her. Anyway, to progress the story, Vivrion comes in with a new party member. Her name is Cersei. I think that's how you pronounce her name. but she is a wyvern rider, basically. And if you don't know, wyverns are like little, less intimidating dragons, basically. They're like weaker dragons. Anyway, they come in, they bring bad news that the continent of Valm is under control by a man named Walhart, who is a really bad guy, and he's coming to claim Elise. So, Crom, he goes over to Pelagia and meets the new king, who is Vladiar. Remember that. Yeah, and they all, like, they come up, they team up, uh, and Vladiar gives them the ships to go to Valm because it is like across an ocean. But before they go, they are attacked by Risen, and Marth comes and saves them and reveals that in her eye, she's bearing the Fire Emblem, and Lucina is from the future, like it's Crom's child. And now that we're here, I want to talk about something that this game does that I actually really like. So in this game, you build relationships with characters, and you can get married, like males can get married to females and whatnot. And if you do, you open a paralog, which is this game's side quest, and you could potentially recruit your children to the game. So basically, I'm gonna use like an example that happened on my save. Uh, Actually, I think in general, the main character, the playable character Robin, no matter who you romance, he always has two kids, I think. One of the kids is always going to be Morgan, who suffers from amnesia, and a random child, depending on who you marry. Like, there's like a list of children that you can get. Off the top of my head, there's Yarne, who is the Pane, like, special child. He's like timid and like, he's like a scaredy cat. He's nothing like his mom. There's Na, who is Nawi's daughter. She's also a dragon. She's also a Makate. There's Brady, who's a priest, and for me, he was the son of Maribel, and he was also the son of Frederick. And they also had Kjell, who was a knight like Kellum, who was also their child as well. And that was it. There's actually like a big list of kids that you can meet. It's just on my playthrough, that was all who I ran into. So the crew, they get to Valm and they meet this girl named Sayri, and she tells them about the Mila tree, which is where Tiki is, and Tiki is like a divine dragon. She's like the dragon. She's like a very special dragon. But that's like a side quest, actually. You don't have to do that. But I would recommend doing it if you play, because Tiki is a good unit. So you do some stuff in Valm, and you learn more about the story. Basically, the main villain is trying to awaken this really bad dragon named Grima. And basically, this whole part of the game is fighting Walhart. And yeah, that's really it. I mean, honestly, that is kind of just it for this part of the story. So I think it's time we get into the last bit of the story. So for Act 3, we have Grima's return and the ending. And I think this game's ending is one of the coolest endings of like any like RPG, because this whole, like, there's not much for the ending. It's just like one big chapter. So Grima awakens. It's a really big dragon, and the final fight in the whole game takes place on his back, and I think that is just really cool. And another thing this game does do is since Crom and Robin the whole game have basically been the main characters. And another thing, if either Crom or Robin dies in combat, it's just an instant game over. That is another thing I don't like about the game, but it's not that bad. But if Crom kills Grandma, Grandma will fall asleep for another 1,000 years and basically be unkillable until he returns. But if Robin kills the character, it will kill Robin, but also fully kill Grandma. Which I think when I was playing, I had Robin do it just to make sure he was gone for good. And that's it, yeah. The game is over. The credits roll. Another thing I really like about this game that it does unique, uh, you get like an ending for every character. Like the game tells you what like every character goes off and does. I think that's really neat. I've always liked endings like that where it like like what the characters are going to go do, and I think every character getting an ending is nice. But in the after credit scenes, there's an after credit scene where Robin wakes up, very similar to the intro, and meets with Crom and Lisa, and I think it's really nice. So overall, I think this game is amazing. I think this is one of the most influential games to me that I have ever played. Not just as a gamer, but just in general. Like, I'm a wannabe story writer, and I would say this game has definitely affected the way I write characters. I have like this, I think because of Fire Emblem, a lot of characters in my stories all have like different personalities that all clash with each other, I like to think. And I also just agree that I still agree that this is one of the best 3DS games on the 3DS library. And I left a lot of stuff out in this video because I want you, the viewer, to go play this game. This is a truly amazing game. I don't care what the community says. This game is awesome to me, and I think you should go play it now.